Before we start the pod, quick mention of a band you and I, Rog, both have very strong feelings about. The Arctic Monkeys, Sheffield Gents, huge Sheffield Wednesday fans, Rog. Never been more love for Sheffield Wednesday in the history of this podcast and brand, Rog.
In the history of Sheffield.
In the history of Sheffield. This week, between the Monkeys and Dominic West. The band aren't catching many games at Hillsborough right now. They're on tour here in the US of A.
I love that
supporting
country.
their new album, AM, which Rolling Stone called a game changer.
A Wendepunkt.
You can buy AM on iTunes and at the Domino Records web store. And that is at www.dominorecord.co.us/Mart.
Don't forget the /.
It's quite a complicated web address, so let me say that again. www.dominorecord.co.us/Mart.
To the pod.
This is Rebecca Lowe, or Rebecca Lua, if you listen to Suboptimal Radio, and you are listening to Men in Blazers on the NBC Sports Network.
It's unbelievable!
From the Embassy Row Studios in the crap part of Soho, Rog, it's the Men in Blazers podcast.
You're back.
I'm back.
You've got a farmer's tan.
Well, there are a lot of farmers in Norfolk, Rog. Norfolk.
Golfing weekend with the gents.
Big golfing weekend, annual golf tour, Rog. It's been going 25 years, that golf tour. I haven't been on all 25 years of it. But 8 guys, a few of us were at Edinburgh, a few of us at university with each other, stayed friends for so long, go and play links golf courses in Britain, Rog. We see parts of Britain that I never knew existed.
Like Norfolk.
like the coast of Norfolk.
It's the bit that jumps out of England on the right-hand side over London.
Yeah, it's Britain's arse. It's it's Britain's sort of Eden Hazard's buttocks.
It's beautiful.
Sticking out there. It's a beautiful, very agricultural country. Norwich, Rog, is in Norfolk. But Norwich is sort of like about 25 miles south of where I was. And then all roads stop. And you just get little country roads that go up into northern Norfolk. And it's a place lost in time.
They don't know that the war's over there.
They still have steam railroads, Rog. It's like crazy. It's like Thomas the Tank Engine land.
Oh, the fat controller.
Apparently, Dominic West on the Men in Blazers show this week told us it is statistically the most inbred county in England. And I saw perhaps a little bit of evidence of that. Not a lot of diversity, I would have to say. I even ate at an Indian restaurant there where everyone was white.
Is this also a sponsored thing by the Norwich Tourist Board?
No.
You're really selling it well.
But I must say, the golf, if you like undiscovered, underrated links courses, go to Norfolk, Sheringham, Hunstanton, just some fantastic golf courses.
Well, I'm glad you're back.
Yeah.
Well, you're away. I had the ultimate Men in Blazers mind game.
Meld?
Insert your own word there.
Okay, go.
A GFOP came up to me in Starbucks,
Yeah.
the one in the crap part of Soho, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Davo!" I wasn't sure whether to be thrilled or insulted, Davo.
So what did you decide?
Honestly,
to be insulted or to be flattered?
I was more worried for your feelings.
Yeah.
Because I've dealt with this before.
Yeah. I've been called Rog a lot.
You have?
Yeah, a lot. Happens all the time.
My grandma Flora,
Yeah.
when she was on her deathbed, I went back to England and I spent 2 days with her. And my brother, you know my brother Nige.
I do. Liverpool fan.
Older than me,
Yeah.
but very, very athletic, very, very fit, strapping.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 days in a retirement home with my grandma where her to-do list on a daily basis consisted of eating an entire jar of toffees. She was completely lost to marbles.
Uh-huh.
And on the last day I went in to see her, all she said to me when I walked in, she just said, "My brother's name is..."
Nige.
She said, I walked in and she greets me by saying, "Nigel, Roger's looking a bit fat nowadays." There was
I would be insulted by that.
But I didn't know. If she thought I was Nigel and Nigel's unbelievably fit, but she was looking at me, how fat could I be? No. He's an amazing looking man.
Yeah.
I thought it was just the most ultimate mind cock until this gentleman called me David. Those were her last words to me, by the way. I never got another word out of her again.
Interesting.
That's how I remember her. But it's complete. It's wheels within wheels, David. I was highly, it made my day when someone called me David.
I'm always flattered when people call me Rog. So you're just back from Los Angeles yourself, Rog.
We'll talk about that in the pod. I was in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
Spent the day with Landonium.
Wow. Can't wait to hear about that.
We will chat. But we had a lovely thing happen to us this week.
Yeah.
We were in Rolling Stone, an overly kind piece by David Peisner.
Yeah.
We got a great tweet from @Dante Florence, who said, "Wow, you're in Rolling Stone, Men in Blazers. Not since Bros in the early 90s of two Englishmen with no musical talent at all, rock Rolling Stone." Now, I know magazines are not what they used to be, David.
Yeah.
But when I was 15, and I was obsessed with America,
Yeah.
a country which I had not yet been to,
Yeah.
I subscribed to Rolling Stone, and it would ship over to me in a large envelope 6 weeks late. And on the cover would be like Miami Vice, which was not yet on American English television. Wasn't on English television for another year. Back to the Future. I'd heard this movie that I'd read about, but then you couldn't see in England for how long?
Yeah, a long time.
Months. I mean, bands, the Hooters, the Long Riders, the Windbreakers, long before anyone had ever heard about them in England, always had Calvin Klein perfume in the middle, a scratch and sniff kind of advertisement. So it always smelt of how I imagined Molly Ringwald would smell. And when it came onto my doorstep, I'd opened Rolling Stone. And I know magazines, Dave, are not what they used to be. But it always felt to me that America, a little slice of America, had popped in through my kind of mailbox. And it was a big honour
So do you
for
think...
me now to sully its pages.
By the way, Susan Lucci just walked past the room where we are making this pod in a very bizarre, surreal moment where we're also recording a special episode of Watch What Happens Live, apparently. La Lucci. Okay, Rog, we've got a packed pod. We've got huge games, including big Burnley goals.
I love me a Burnley goal.
We've got a surplus of narrative, including a near-celebrity, near-death match. And we've got Landon Donovan's last ever game for the US to look forward to. Wire hero McNulty, Dominic West pops in, and we've got your Ravens to 10-2, as well as updates on the Men in Blazers national team, Rog.
Hard-hitting updates.
Gibraltar may or may not have been in touch. And we've got the winners of EA Sports designer cover for FIFA 16 game to announce.
Oh, it's all I've been playing.
Okay, Rog, to the football. Let's go to your Guinness. Give it a good tap. Give it a good... Oh, Rog, I can tell you didn't tap that up.
We got
There we go. Just pour it. Just have some silence while we pour this.
We got a great tweet from @Mike Sell.
Yeah.
@Men in Blazers. Setting aside the immorality of your Guinness can technique, why antagonise and insult the Irish Widget Installers Union? People are very annoyed we don't
Cheers,
wait
mate.
for 5 minutes. Cheers to Tweed.
I've never needed a Guinness more than today.
To Landon Donovan.
To Tweed and Landon Donovan. I'm not sure that's ever been said before. Okay, Rog, we are 7/38 of the way through a very odd season, and you know how I feel about fractions of the season which don't reduce, Rog. Always big stuff happens. Let's just say boom patterns are emerging, Rog. The big game this weekend, Chelsea 2, Arsenal 0. The Premier League's last two unbeaten teams clashed. And unlike their manager, Chelsea were the aggressors on the field, Rog. Eden Hazard nonchalantly converted a 27th minute penalty, and Diego Costa killed the game off in the 78th minute, courtesy of a beautifully lofted wedge from former Gunner icon Cesc Fabregas.
Has the big London derby, Davo, ever felt more like a fight between Heather Locklear and Denise Richards?
Well, it did this time.
I mean, the big pre-match storyline.
Yeah.
The return of Cesc Fabregas.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that one? Lining up in blue against an Arsenal team he played for 8 seasons and ultimately captain.
Well, I think that means more to Arsenal fans, Rog, than it does to Chelsea fans. I think we've got very used to seeing Cesc in blue already. I think for us, the pre-match storyline was 11 meetings between Jose Mourinho's Chelsea and Arsene Wenger's Arsenal before this game, and Arsene has never won one of them. And I'm not looking forward to it. It will happen. Arsene will beat Jose's Chelsea, but I dread the day when that happens because it feels so good to beat them.
I thought it was fascinating. I mean, this Arsenal midfield, the squad, it's as crowded as Miss Hannigan's orphanage. Ozil, Ramsey, Cazorla, Wilshere. Arsene Wenger had said about Cesc, I have no regrets about not re-signing him. My regret is that he left in the first place. I wonder what he felt about that post-game, but it was a brilliant chant by the Chelsea fans. Spent the first half an hour of the game just chanting, he left because you're, well, crap, I can say. He left because you're crap. Cesc Fabregas, he left because you're crap. In truth, Dave, beginning of the game, Arsenal had plenty of ball.
Yeah, I think Arsenal came in, obviously last time these two teams met at Stamford Bridge, it was 6-0 to Chelsea. And I think Arsenal came in, and credit to them, they played much harder in the centre of the park and at the back than we've seen them play before. Also, they've got different players who can go and do this. You know, one of Danny Welbeck's real talents is his ability, when the team don't have the ball, his recovery to go and get it back. And I thought Chelsea didn't have a lot of time on the ball in those first 20 minutes.
I mean, it was intent without belief for me watching Arsenal. And Chelsea, they always look like a boxer, confident in the knowledge they possess a big punch and just trying to work out exactly how they could land it. It was niggly. It was gritty. It was very different to the 6-0, as you've said, of last season. Big talking point at the beginning, Courtois knocked over by Sanchez.
Oh, by Sanchez's thighs.
At DRZeus21 tweeted us and said, one can only fear the damage that may have occurred had Sanchez actually had his thighs exposed.
Yeah.
But it was as a viewer, we've been told by no less an authority than Arlo White that when you're looking on television, don't play the doctor.
Yeah.
But it was so clear that he was out cold, Courtois. You could see that from the television. He looked like he'd been sucker punched. They slapped him up for 13 minutes until they realised there was blood seeping out of his ear.
Yeah.
And then there was a removal. It was a very, very awkward...
Well, I think the reality is that they did follow the protocol that has been set up by the FA that the Premier League are adhering to. And the protocol being that the medical team are in control, the manager can have no influence over what the decision is on the player. But I still think, obviously, the wrong decision was made in this point because 13 minutes later his ear was bleeding and they had to bring him off. You know, you and I discussed it briefly about what could they do to make it just more immediate to go and take him off, whether that becomes you're allowed, with a goalkeeper particularly, could you just have a free substitution of your goalkeeper if they had...
Or
some
a temporary
kind of
substitution while they evaluate them.
Yeah, just for the goalkeeper so that it's not abused by other outfield players. I think this might be a smart thing to go and do. We have seen some of the worst injuries we've seen in football recently, including to Peter Cech, have been injuries to goalkeepers and head injuries to goalkeepers.
Well, the violence did not stop there.
Mm-hmm.
First, Cahill took out Sanchez, and then NHL rules prevailed.
And Arsene Wenger goes after Jose Mourinho, Rog.
Yeah, it's like watching two hockey goons go for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the honest truth is it was the worst two fighters I've seen clash since Frankie Goes to Hollywood's video for Two Tribes. We were screaming at the television, why did you not just stop the game then and there and let them fight?
Reposition all the cameras. Get all the cameras just looking at that and just let them go at it.
Two grown men want to fight.
Yeah.
For the love of God, fight, 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 said the world. It was fight foreplay, Davo. It was fight foreplay. I love the note afterwards that Rui Faria, Mourinho's assistant, started a mouth off at Arsene Wenger, and Steve Bold. How would you describe Steve Bold, Davo?
Violent.
Old school Arsenal defender. Yeah. I mean, you nailed it. With
agricultural.
Agricultural, not in the Norfolk sense.
Yeah. Similar to the Norfolk sense.
He, quote, tells Mourinho's assistant to, quote, shut your effing gob. When I read that quote, Dave, I thought, it's one of the English words I miss most in America. Gob.
Yeah.
Along with knob. I miss gob and knob a huge amount. Big question.
Yeah.
We've been discussing, who would win that fight, Dave?
Well, I think based on that evidence, Arsene looked much better in that fight than Mourinho. Mourinho did, though, a Frenchman does not like having his tie flicked up to hit his nose.
No one likes
Frenchman
tie
does
up
not enjoy that. In France, that is the ultimate insult.
It's like a kidney punch, a stylish kidney punch. Here's what I think about Wenger. There was a kid in my class called Durrant, who was just a complete and utter kind of outsider, fringe gentleman. I mean, just an odd bod.
Yeah.
But there were always moments in school when we were 11 and 12. If he just got baited, he was bullied, it was savage, terrible things occurred to him. But there were just a couple of occasions where he was pushed too far.
Yeah.
And he'd snap. And then he'd almost become superpowered. And he'd come out swinging. And he could take on when the hulkish rage took control of him, he'd just go bonkers with fists of fury. And I think Arsene Wenger is like Durrant. Like, I think in normal, everyday interactions, you could pretty well make Arsene Wenger crumple. But I think when the rage takes hold, Dave, he's unstoppable.
Well, look, and I do think that this was nothing to do with, or very little to do with the Cahill challenge on Sanchez. This was about the 11 previous meetings, the things that have been said post-game, pre-game, before and after these previous encounters. Wenger clearly does not like Mourinho. Mourinho clearly does not like Wenger. And so there's a lot of previous here and all been building up.
Wenger's got reach.
Yeah.
Mourinho, to me, in watching that fight, and I have watched it over and over again from the different angles, I think he is it's like punching a bully.
Yeah.
He specialises in mental torture with his mouth, but he seems to me, I would bet physically he's the kind of guy that can dish it out but can't take it. At KD Chicago, he said, who would win? For some reason, I think the whole thing would play out like a Monty Python skit. At Carbo Bernie, it depends on the kind of fight. In an MMA fight, Wenger. A pillow fight, Mourinho. Sword fight, Wenger. Dance fight, Mourinho. But the best one, at J Love, who would win? Sir Alex Ferguson.
Well, the truth is, though, their jobs are football managers, and the fight was really about what was going on the field. And I thought the interesting thing here is how the players responded. That was the 19th minute. Just 6 minutes later, Rog, Eden Hazard hits the R1 button, goes right into the box at a sort of a speed. It was almost like it was happening at a different speed than the rest of the game.
He went 0.5 past light speed.
Yeah, he did pretty much.
He just changed his little legs and large buttocks, ran at Koscielny.
Yeah.
Faster than the Frenchman's brain could engage.
Yeah, and also zigzag, zigzag, he went, Rog.
It was like watching John Wall of the Wizards off the dribble.
Yeah.
And the question I've got for you, why doesn't Hazard do that more?
It's so funny because at the World Cup, remember that game we saw, Belgium versus Russia? It was a pretty terrible performance by Belgium, and another poor Belgian performance at the World Cup. But there was a moment, and it happened right in front of us at that stadium in Rio. Hazard just decided. It was almost like we anticipated it happening just before it happened. I think you said to me, here's where Hazard's going to do it. And he literally just went to a different gear, skinned the defender, skinned the right back, and created the goal for Belgium. And yet he doesn't do it all the time.
And the question is, why doesn't he do it? Because he can't be asked, you'd say, in Liverpool.
Well, he has more take-ons, I think, than any player in any top league in Europe at this point, or more successful take-ons. So he does go for those runs all the time. But I suppose some of it, would have to say, is that they don't always end in goals. But I do agree, and a lot of Chelsea fans would say this, is that you don't quite understand why he doesn't do it all the time.
I mean, to me, this was the motif of the game. He did just enough when it mattered, no more, no less. And Chelsea's big players stepped up when Arsenal's big players like Ozil and hat-trick hero of England, Danny Welbeck, didn't. And in that second half, Arsenal tried to force their identity onto the game. Oscar was everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely everywhere. And when Arsenal did become dominant or threatened, Arsenal rules dictated a Chelsea goal would come. And what a goal. Cesc, the dagger, Davey.
Yeah.
As I said on the Men in Blazers show, watching him loft that chip, it was like watching Theon Greyjoy turn and then raid Winterfell.
Yeah, set right boot to 54 degrees. It's like back of his stance. Boom, take a little bit of grass, a little bit of backspin. You've got to give Costa credit. He took it down on his chest pretty nicely and a pretty audacious finish over the pole.
Bloody jazz hands, David. Diego Costa, 9 goals in 7 appearances, 4 goals clear of his nearest rival. Fabregas, 7 assists in the Premier League. That's as many as any Chelsea player had for the entire last season. That was Hazard, interestingly enough. At Daniel Dupre, Costa looks more and more like the guy who murdered Patrick Swayze in Ghost. ... with jazz hands.
I think the other thing you have to say about Chelsea in this game, Rog, is that as impressive as those 2 goals were, and they were both, obviously, even the penalty was well taken, we should say, Rog, is that the fact that they didn't concede against Arsenal, they didn't allow Arsenal to have a shot on target until injury time. You are just not going to beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge if you don't have shots on goal.
2 wins from 7 games for Arsenal. One of those came in the last minute against Crystal Palace. I mean, watching this game to me only reinforced the sense that when it comes to big games against big teams, Arsenal, ultimately they find a way to wilt. And I think the gloom has worsened with the discovery today that Mesut Ozil has got a ligament tear and may be out. We don't know for sure. Early reports have him out for the rest of the calendar year.
Yeah.
Arsenal's second worst league start to a season under Wenger, 10 points from 7 games. And we looked at Arsene Wenger at the end of that game, crumpling in the box. He looked ever more Frido Corleone. I'm your older brother, Mike. I was stepped over. Watching him get sucked into Mourinho's mind games, which he ultimately did yet again. Yeah. All I could think of, Davo, was Alexander Pushkin. That great author, the Russian author who died in a duel over his wife's dalliances. Mm-hmm. I think it was a man called Georges Danther who insulted his wife. Pushkin was wounded. He died 2 days later. This is so Wenger. On his deathbed, he sent a message to Danther, forgiving him for everything. And Danther who only had a tiny little scratch on his arm from the bullet that was fired his way, he laughed when he got the message and said, well, tell him I forgive him too, as he died. It's very Mourinho. It's very, very Wenger.
You know, this game was actually fairly close. It was really fairly closely contested. 2 goals separated it. Not enough chances created by Arsenal. The other thing you got to say, Rog, is that the player that Arsenal miss right now is Theo Walcott, a player who can break the team down over the dribble, a player who is their Eden Hazard, who can just make a moment happen. I think he's missed. Aaron Ramsey missed also, perhaps last season's Aaron Ramsey rather than this season's Aaron Ramsey.
You loved watching what, Davo, at the end of that?
The press conference. I listened to it on the radio, Rog, and I was struck by the insanity of what was said by the managers, particularly Arsene Wenger. Rog, a question came, do you regret what happened with Mourinho? Arsene answers, no, nothing to regret after that. Pushing another manager, I wanted to go from A to B, and somebody confronted me in between. Result, I need a sign that said, welcome. Where were you headed? What was the key? To be with Sanchez, to see how badly he was injured. And what did Jose say to you at that point? Honestly, I don't listen to what he says. Do you think it sends the right image of the manager, of your experience and maturity to react in that way? Look, I trust you will teach me all the moral lessons over the next 3 weeks, and I can accept that, but I'm long enough to be in the game to give it the right way to know. By the way, just the language construction of that sentence I enjoyed. But you did push Mourinho, didn't you, when you came together? Do you accept that was good? I can try to push you. You will see if I really try to push. So it wasn't a push. Oh, a little one.
French Pushkin.
Gallic exceptionalism is what that is. There is a problem with every single question that somehow the rules do not apply. But the idea that he simply had to get to A to B, and in the middle of A to B was a little Portuguese, it is a result. En France, c'est normal.
You cheered for them in the Ryder Cup, David.
Victor Dubuisson. He'd be a good manager for Arsenal. No doubt about it, Rog.
Chelsea perspective.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho unbeaten versus Arsenal. 7 wins, 5 draws in all competitions. David, cruise control to the title?
No, it's only 7:38 through the season. Chelsea are good against...
We're in a campaign, David.
Chelsea are good against the big teams, Rog. It's the small teams I worry about.
But every team is wounded. City wounded, Arsenal wounded, United wounded, Liverpool wounded. Chelsea almost seem immortal in comparison.
Yeah.
What could go wrong now, David?
West Bromwich Albion could go wrong, Rog. Leicester could go wrong. Burnley could go wrong. It's the games we're meant to win where Chelsea fall apart.
The only way I can see Chelsea falling apart is John Terry getting an unmedically solvable case of chlamydia and Diego Costa, that hamstring, which Mourinho insists on making sound like a fraying rope bridge across the fast-flowing river in Indiana Jones. One of those two things happens, David. And
but the probability is around 95% of both of those things happening, Rog. Anyway, Manchester United 2, Everton 1, Rog, in the first ever post-David Moyes derby, United dragged themselves back into the top 4, Rog. Angel Di Maria opened the scoring in the 27th minute, beating Tim Howard with a right-footed strike from just inside the 18-yard box. After David De Gea saved a Leighton Baines penalty. What a game the Man United keeper had, Rog. Everton drew level thanks to the flaxen head of Stephen Naismith. But just 7 minutes later, Radamel Falcao scored his first United goal to give United all 3 points.
David. Brandon McCarthy came on our show last week.
He did.
He coined a phrase that was very useful for me on Sunday. Sad nap. It's what you take after your team plays with misery on an early morning Premier League game.
How restful is a sad nap?
I had a very long and unrefreshing sad nap on Sunday. This was a battle at the beginning between Louis van Gaal and Roberto Martinez. Watching that camera angle of the two of them on the sideline, I was struck. That must have been what the Dutch man looks like and what he thinks he looks like in his imagination.
Wow.
But how do you view yourself, David? Is there someone that you think you are or you would like to be? Or
Well, increasingly, because we actually get to see ourselves on television every week, I now can no longer view myself any other way than I look on television or in pictures. And I've just accepted I'm 48 years old, I've lost my hair, and I need to lose about 25 pounds. So I've just accepted that. And I'm very grey.
I'm starting to look more and more like Studs Terkel. The big question pre-game, how would Louis van Gaal line up his team without suspended rapscallion / captain Wayne Rooney?
Yeah.
And he went to Juan Mata, which is
Happy feet too, Rog.
akin to beating up on a golden retriever puppy, then giving it love by putting it at the tip of a diamond.
He had a great game, though.
It was okay. I mean, United started with Brio. They used the flanks. They stretched Everton. They pressed hard to regain the ball once they lacked it. Having Di Maria constantly run at Tony Hibbert was like watching a bullet train run at a mediocre steam engine from about 1850.
From Norfolk, I saw a lot of those this weekend.
A goal was coming. Do you ever feel that in a game, David? You just know.
Winter is coming.
Mata picked up some slops, fed Di Maria. Modigliani made no mistake. He's contributed now, Di Maria, to 5 goals in his 5 Premier League appearances.
Yeah.
Everton, another horrible stat, 1 clean sheet in their 9 games this season, all competitions.
They've conceded more goals than anybody else in the Premier League, Rog.
No Barkley, no Morales, no Seamus Coleman. Everton lacked any sharpened threat. Watching them attack in that first half, it was like watching a monkey try and open a can of plum tomatoes without a can opener, just banging it on a rock. Mm-hmm. Massive problem, David. You sold it to us. Romelu Lukaku.
Wow.
Absolutely owned by Paddy McNair.
Yeah.
He seems to lack power, motivation, sharpness, and most frighteningly, from an Everton perspective, courage.
There's something, you buy things that appreciate, rent things that depreciate. He's so much better on loan, Rog. Lukaku, he's not great when he's owned. He's a much better loan. It's like a piece of industrial machinery. You don't want to buy it. It's a depreciating asset. Rent it.
My mother-in-law once brought a beautiful couch, a very expensive couch.
Yeah.
And my father-in-law walked in and he just said, I had my kid sitting on it, and he just looked at it and he goes, that thing has lost 87% of its value the second it left the store. That's how I feel about Lukaku. At Perfect Speller said, Lukaku's impact on the game has been less visible than Naismith in a snowstorm. On the other wing, Aidan McGeady chugged away at Luke Shaw. There was the penalty. It was like my eyes deceived me. Old man Hibbert. It was like watching a rejuvenated Don Amici in Cocoon, charging into the area. Penalty. Baines steps up, misses. Reverse Ivor Bennett time. A penalty miss in the 45th minute, David.
Wheels within wheels.
And that was it. United did wilt in the second half. Van Gaal admitted afterwards, I'm always honest when I analyse the game.
Honest.
It's now our second game that we are not good in the second half. They just conceded free kick after free kick. Everton kept pummeling away at that raw United defence, and it was from one of those that Naismith struck like a White Walker.
Yeah.
God love that man. He's like a footballing Owen Meany. But for Everton, where there's hope, Dave, what's always close behind?
Oh, there's the opposite of hope.
Misery.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tim Howard, unfortunately, at the centre of all that's rotten. Floundered again. He'll not feel good when he looks at the video of the goal. Di Maria Shast. Yes, it was Di Maria. Yes, it was a Shas. But even Di Maria's Shas's are beautiful. Went right to Falcao. At B. Conley 33. Falcao and Flo from Progressive Insurance have the same haircut.
Yeah, 2 things really occurred to me, Rog. Number one, that Everton, as much as there's, is dissatisfaction and frustration with Romelu Lukaku, the biggest problems are at the back. They've scored 13 goals this season, which is quite a lot. Is that they've conceded 16 goals, and I think you correctly identify Tim Howard has not had a great start to this season. Jags, other than the goal, as a strafender, he's magnificent. But I think in central defence, his partnership with either Distan with Stones, it hasn't really gelled yet.
Well, it's not going to, because Johnny Stones is now out for 8 weeks with an ankle injury. Our injury list, Kevin Morales, Seamus Coleman, James McCarthy, Ross Barkley, essentially anyone on the Everton squad who is, quote, good at kicking footballs. It's tough. I mean, at the end, the game plan for Everton now seems to be really try and turn it on from minute 90 to minute 94. Osman Oviedo went close. De Gea, not since Wonder Woman have I seen such wrists of steel.
Can I say something on that quickly, Rog? Yeah. It's when you tend to watch replays of great saves, you're actually struck by the fact that it actually was not that great a save. It seemed inevitable that they were going to save it. These saves, even in replay, were astounding, Rog. These were 3 astounding saves that De Gea made. In most other games against most other keepers, I think Everton might have won this one.
The only thing that was more astounding was his haircut. Looks like he's had a hair transplant and shuffled his hair from the side of his head down to his chin. It's madness.
We know he's consulting with, Rog.
But it works. Everton back from deepest Russia in the early morning of Friday. Europa League is football's cruelest gift. Honestly, I feel like this season is a bit like watching my team I love walk into a rake and just have it hit them in the face. United, are they back?
Yeah.
Well, 3 of the next 4 opponents are Chelsea, City, Arsenal, and I think, sad to say, they'll offer a truer litmus test for United than Everton. But United up to 4th. Everton 2 points off the relegation zone, David.
Everton, though, have had a very tough early season fixture list. They've played some very tough games. They're scoring a lot of goals. They're making a lot of chances, Rog. They've got more goals than, same number of goals as Manchester United, more goals than anybody else ahead of them in the league other than Manchester City and Chelsea.
I keep telling myself it's character building, but honestly, I'm just numb. Stay the course. Stay the course.
Well, I'm sorry, Roger. It's made me very sad. Liverpool 2, West Brom 1, Rog. Jordan Henderson mania reigns at Anfield and in England, I would say, Rog. The bust-turned-powerhouse assisted Adam Lallana with a sublime flick for Liverpool's first. And after the Baggies drew level through a Berahino penalty, it was Henderson who slotted home the winner to return Liverpool to their winning ways and enable them to rebound from an insipid Champions League performance last week against Basel.
Big story, David.
Yeah.
Mario Balotelli to the bench.
Yes. But it seemed to get a performance out of his team, I would say. Balotelli, yeah, I think that the story's a little bit overstated of Brendan Rodgers' frustration. It's delivering a message. It's doing all of those things. I just think he thinks that Balotelli isn't fit. In truth, we're not even seeing the Balotelli we saw during the World Cup, Rog.
Well, let's remember how this Balotelli to Liverpool move went down.
Yeah.
He arrives, Brendan Rodgers welcomes him by telling the world he was, quote, a calculated risk. After his first game, Brendan Rodgers puffed out his chest and told the media, I taught him how to mark on corners. I am in control. And suddenly he's insisting Balotelli needs to score more goals, 0 in 5 league games. Quote, I guess he's implying I am not in control. We don't see training, David.
Yeah.
But 1 minute Balo is being praised by everyone for his work rate.
Yeah.
The next, it seems to me, he's turned into a symbolic scapegoat for all that Liverpool are not.
Yeah.
Confused defensive line, weakened midfield core, and an inability to stretch defensives with panic-inducing pace, plus Lazar Markovic.
Yeah.
So that's it. It's like they're still in the post-Suarez world. It's like Siskel and Ebert after Gene Siskel passed away.
Yeah.
And they had like Harry Knowles and Janet Maslin going through the rotation until they discovered Richard Roper and became Ebert and Roper. Today, replacing Siskel was Ricky Lambert with Lallana behind him. And the combination meant that West Brom didn't have a lot to fear. And West Brom, to be fair, they really pushed forward with a courage and an optimism without worrying about being caught out behind. Lambert, did you see his performance? It was like watching one of those tank games where you go for heavy armament at the sacrifice of speed. I
mean, I would say that for Liverpool, they don't have the fluidity they had last year. They don't have that, they receive the ball, immediately go forward. And they do seem to have tightened up a little bit at the back. Definitely their defence looks better. I thought Lallana looked quite good. I think Jordan Henderson has raised his game to a new level all over radio, the newspapers in England. They're talking about Henderson as the next Liverpool captain, probably the next England captain, Rog. A genuine box-to-box midfielder. He's become the real leader on that team, and that's saying a lot, seeing as he plays alongside Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, I mean, I thought West Brom was solid. Gamboa looked full of pace and power and optimism. Sessegnon, Berahino squandered the best of the chances they made until the equalising penalty. Lallana, phenomenal goal. He jigged through 3 West Brom defenders. 1-2 with Henderson for a fine finish. Liverpool did respond. I mean, they were screaming for a penalty. Sterling played on, and Henderson just passed the ball beautifully to retain the lead. I loved it when Balo came on. The Liverpool faithful, it's like watching Josie Altidore. Everyone wants so badly for him to truly arrive. They cheer everything they can. Balotelli tracks back, applause. He presses from the front, applause. Nothing to show for it. And everyone's going to debate now how this goes next. Liverpool, they won without playing well. There's nothing more beautiful than 3 points, though. They've definitely lost the kind of swagger that their fans came to expect last season. And now this week we're seeing headlines already. Liverpool manager Brendan Rodgers has won £16 million summer signing. He has to forget his ego, or the striker's short career will be over.
But you'd have to say, Rog, that Liverpool aren't alone in not playing well. I think you made the point, Rog, that nobody's really playing well other than Chelsea So Liverpool not alone. Not alone right now, Rog.
Lovely segue into Manchester City.
Yeah. Manchester City go to Aston Villa, Rog, win 2-0. Yaya Toure and Sergio Aguero leave it till the last 10 minutes to see off the bearded battlers of Birmingham. City leapfrog Southampton into second, 5 points adrift of Chelsea. Yeah, they looked like they weren't trying, Rog.
It was the first half was just a garment battle. It was between a beautiful pair of socks, Villa's hoops, against City's away kit, that blue fade. It's one of my favourite this season. But it was really a snooze apart from that. Neither side conjured a shot until the 47th minute. As you're saying, in comparison to Chelsea, City just seemed like an unfinished product made of admittedly high-quality components. Right now, they seem to depend either on the intelligence of David Silva or the potency of Kun Aguero to carry them through with some kind of magic moment.
Or a Frank Lampard substitution.
Well, that happened. And for much of this game, they made Brad Guzan look like world-class goalkeeping by just hitting shots right into his tummy. Villa countered occasional moments of defensive disorganisation from City, which we've come to expect, but they missed the balding cunning of Gabby Bonglahor, who they've got such problems with late scratches for illness, Villa. Pellegrini added Fernando alongside Frank Lampard in the 64th minute. They went to 3-men midfield, and with 8 minutes to go, Yaya Toure suddenly he did
an Eden Hazard, Rog.
He held off 3 defenders, slapped it home, his first goal of the season, didn't celebrate hugely. Kun Aguero doubled the lead moments later. By the way, the ball seems to make a different sound when Kun Aguero scores. It always sounds like he's drilling it against a chain-link fence.
Yeah.
Yaya Toure, David.
Yeah.
We love him. He's a big boy. He's 31 years old. He wants one last bumper payday. What is going on with Yaya Toure?
Well, I just think it's a little bit like Eden Hazard. Like, Yaya Toure seems to have the physical strength combined with tremendous foot speed and skill to change a game and influence it whenever he wants to. And he just, in this game, it was just that one moment where he had a little bit of space. A fantastic finish, Rog. I mean, an absolutely unsavable shot with his left foot.
I think the tension is, we love him, he's a big boy, but he wants one last major payday. City see him as a 31-year-old gentleman that they don't want to give one last payday to, and that is where the tension lies. I did love Vincent Kompany.
They can't even afford the birthday cake, Rog.
I did love the Vincent Kompany line after the game. It was great psychedelic workings of his inner mind. He hailed that City performance as, quote, awesome. Quick note on Roy Keane, Davo, voluptuous of beard.
Yep.
Americans new to the game, you do well to YouTube Keane and Vieira, the best of enemies, which gives you a sense of who he really is as a man. But he's got his autobiography coming out, and some of the quotes that have hit the English press are really, really remarkable. He said he was a manager of Sunderland, and he said it might seem strange, but you find out about characters when you look to see who's in charge of the music in the locker room. A young lad might want to put on the latest sound. An older player might say, I'm the senior player, and put himself in charge. When I was Sunderland manager, I noticed none of the players were in charge of the music. This was a concern for me. A member of staff was in charge. The last song before the players went onto the pitch was Dancing Queen by ABBA.
Yeah.
What really worried me was none of the players. Not one of them said, get that crap off. They were going out to play a match. Men versus men. Testosterone levels were high. You've got to hit people at the pace. Effing Dancing Queen. It worried me. I didn't have as many leaders as I thought.
Yeah.
Dave, I don't think he understands Dancing Queen.
Yeah, it's a fantastic song.
Anyone could be that guy.
Yeah.
Night is young and the music's high.
Yeah.
What would be your sight music before you play the game of your life?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know how I feel about Jamaican ska. I like a bit of Jamaican ska.
Yeah.
But I'd like something a bit more down. I wouldn't want to get too amped up.
Play Free Nelson Mandela before your team takes
No, give me Holocene by Bon Iver or something like that. Something to bring me down.
I'd go with Block Rockin' Beats for the Men in Blazers Nest by the Chemical Brothers.
Yeah.
Fisherman's Blues by the Waterboys.
Yeah.
If we've got to play a Defter game.
Uh-huh.
But probably just for Everyday Wins.
Yeah.
Father and Son by Cat Stevens.
Big one.
I know I have to find a way. He did write, in all seriousness, this book. He talked about his own anger, his own desire to self-sabotage, the voice inside of him, Roy Keane, that says, you're always going to muck up, you will pay for this, my self-destruct button. I know I'm a man who'll drag things down around me. The quote that sends shivers down my spine, Dave, he said, my midlife crisis has been going on for years.
Oy. Yeah, he also said he didn't regret in any way that tackle on Hangeland, that awful, awful tackle. Anyway, Rog, Tottenham 1, Southampton 0. Mauricio Pochettino gets over on his former club at White Hart Lane, courtesy of a 40th minute strike from Danish midfielder / Sparrow Christian Eriksen. The win is Spurs' third of the season, but their first since August 24th.
Yeah, Pochettino gets one over his old team.
Yeah.
The Southampton fans spent the whole game chanting, "Where's your translator gone?" He always pretended at Southampton he couldn't speak English. Suddenly he's absolutely fluent. Victory for Spurs that they badly needed after 4 winless games. Lamela, Capoue, Chadley, all impressive. I love watching Kabul more than any player this season.
Really?
Oh, I love him. Even Emmanuel Adebayo broke into a run.
Yeah, we haven't seen that for a while.
Yeah, they did have their chances, Southampton, in the second half, but Lloris went very De Gea.
Yeah.
Koeman continues to make me love him more and more.
Ronald Koeman, we love him.
He said he was asked about the core of his team's philosophy.
Yeah.
He said, "Can you do this in your Dutch voice?"
We don't party when we win, we don't make shit when we lose. That was actually a little Swedish / Dutch, but Ronald Koeman can do a little bit of both.
We don't make crap when we lose. Only Dutch guys can. I think they know how to speak properly, but they know they're cute when they do that stuff. My favourite Spurs story of the week, Gary Lane, bricklayer from Woking, loves Tottenham so much, he's changed his name legally to White Hart Lane, even though the club are on the brink of moving to a new stadium.
Well, just change it again. It's no problem at all. Swansea 2, Newcastle 2. Rog, Papi Cissé continues his one-man crusade to save Alan Pardew's job, scoring twice to earn the Magpies a point at the Liberty Stadium. Newcastle have just 4 points in 7 games. Only goal difference separates them from Burnley and QPR in the relegation zone.
Yep, 2 goals for Newcastle against the run of play, both by re-energised Papi Cissé. Alan Pardew said he will, quote, shine his Manager of the Year awards to give him confidence, David.
Oh, my God. I don't know how Newcastle could even play in those shirts. They were awful.
Oh, they're very XFL. I like them. I love that. I'm going to shine my Manager of the Year awards. It's a euphemism. I don't know what it could be for, David. I'm starting to respect him hanging on in there. He's like Gloria Gaynor.
Yeah.
First he was afraid, he was petrified.
Yeah.
The banner of the season, lost. I don't know how you read that out. LLWWLLW, not a Welsh town.
Yeah, you have to understand the Welsh language, that it's constant use of double L's, triple L's, fourth L's. There is a famous little Welsh town that has a railway station I visited when I was a kid, Rog, and it's called Llanfair, Pilgrim, Gilgo, Cherichim, Colbwyl, Llanfair, Llylioch, Gogogoch. And it has like 50,000 L's in it.
It's named after the way Louis van Gaal laughs.
That's so funny. Too much. I thought the game of the weekend, Rog, Leicester 2, Burnley 2. Substitute Ross Wallace drove home a 96th minute free kick to rescue a point for Burnley, moved them off the bottom of the table. The Clarets' earlier goal snapped a 565-minute scoreless drought in Premier League play, the 10th longest in history.
I loved after the game Leicester manager Nigel Pearson fuming. Yeah. Burnley didn't come here to play. They didn't come to play fluid football. It's Burnley.
Yeah, I know. What do you want?
It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Exactly. Yeah. Talking of tins, Rog, Sunderland 3, Stoke 1. The Black Cats claim their first win of the season behind a brace from Stephen Fletcher, going bald, and 1 goal from Connor Wickham. Rog, you may say Sunderland has only 1 win, but I prefer to focus on the fact they only have 1 loss.
Yeah, they do, and their strikers come alive.
Yeah.
I do love Stephen Fletcher. If I had a list of Premier League's best balls in denial, probably be number 2 or 3. Gus Poyet, we both love that man.
Yeah.
We loved him on the sideline, punch in the air.
Oh, he's so excited.
He looked like Kurt Gibson, 1988 World Series, Game 1.
Yeah, this was a good win for Sunderland, Rog. Stoke are a pretty good football club. West Ham 2, QPR 0. The Hammers surged to 7th in the table after defeating lowly Queen's Park Rangers at Upton Park. A Needham Onua own goal and second half Diafra Sacco header sent QPR limping into the international break at the very bottom of the table.
Sacco, first West Ham player to score in 4 consecutive Premier League games.
Wow.
Since the mighty Carlton Cole.
Amazing.
He did it in 5 in 2008, David.
Yeah. West Ham, a considerably improved side, Rog, no doubt about it. Hull 2, Crystal Palace 0. Palace's 4-game unbeaten streak comes to an end thanks to second-half goals from Hull's Mohamed Diame and another one for your boy Jelavic, or your former boy Jelavic.
Great
Rog.
finish.
The pair account for 7 of the Tigers' 11 goals this season.
2 shots on target for Hull, 2 goals.
Yeah.
3 goals in 4 games for Mo Diame.
Yeah.
The thing I love about Hull City is that they're the only English Football League team with no letters in their name that have an enclosed space for doodlers. For that reason alone, the Hull Tigers name change will never work in my book.
I know, because that's got a G and it's got an E that you are enclosed. You're absolutely right, Rog. Final button on the Premier League, Rog. Big news that does not mean a lot right now. Premier League fixtures could be played overseas within 5 seasons. The possibility of a new plan is on the agenda 6 years after Chief Executive Richard Scudamore's controversial 39th game proposals were dismissed.
Yeah, that news doesn't mean anything, but it still gives me the thickening, David.
Yeah, we'd love to see some Premier League games in the United States, Rog. Talking of USA, Landon Donovan, Rog, breaks the all-time MLS career assist record as the Galaxy blanks Toronto FC 3-0. The team moved alone into the top spot in MLS while extending their undefeated streak to 10 games, Rog. Got to ask yourself, why is he retiring now? He's still one of the best players in an MLS. Why is he going?
Well, I had the chance to ask him.
Yeah.
Because I'm making a
series of films, right, Roger?
A series of films with John Hawke. We're going fly on the wall through
That's
his
John
last...
Hawke, not John Harkes.
I wish John Hawke.
That'd be amazing.
Although Johnny Hawke is an unbelievable human being.
He's good too.
Unbelievable human being. We're following him for his last game for the US. And then the end of the regular season and into the playoffs with LA Galaxy. And I spent the day with Landon yesterday in Manhattan Beach. And I asked him, why are you going out? You look at Derek Jeter. That's a gentleman who went out literally on the decline. Landon Donovan is still racking up goals. I mean, since he announced his retirement, he's been a man on fire. He said he wants to go out while he's still performing at the highest level rather than being begged to stop. I asked him also if he feels like the Vincent van Gogh of American soccer. It's what whenever anyone talks about
How did he answer that one?
He said to me, he laughed. And he said, what, you mean I have to die before people understand what I've done?
Wow.
And I said, no, I didn't say die, not die exactly. But you look at all of these records that he's racked up, and really most American sports fans know him for that one goal, the 2010 goal.
Yeah.
And so he's a gentleman who's been a giant, but he's kind of bestrode 2 eras, one in which being the greatest American soccer player kind of ranked up there with being the greatest American yo-yo or didgeridoo player. And now he goes out when Americans do care about soccer, but we haven't seen all the great goals he scored in 2001, 2002 when he came into MLS, when he was kind of blonde of hair, fresh-faced and unbelievably electric as a goal scorer. What I love most about him is that I've never met an athlete who talks so much about his own performance in terms of his own happiness. He's a very complex man playing a very simple game.
Well, Rog, US versus Ecuador. That's in Hartford, Connecticut on Friday night. Landon will be honoured in a farewell half hour in which he will wear the captain's armband.
Yeah, it's going to be a complex one because there's no doubt that the pain of...
There's got to be a complicated relationship between him and Klinsmann.
I think he talks about that they just look at life, the 2 men look at life incredibly differently. And I think that's how he's trying to resolve the 2 things. But he's going to be surrounded by youth for this final game.
Yeah.
The spotlight will be on him, but Dempsey's not going to be there. Michael Bradley's not going to be there. Tim Howard's not going to be there. He originally declined the offer. Sunil Gulati called him up, talked to him about the game. He said he originally said no, but then he realised he wanted a proper send-off for his family's sake more than anything. So much of his identity is about US soccer, his role as a US soccer international. And there's going to be 19 Donovans in the crowd in Hartford against Ecuador. Jurgen's talking about building a new hierarchy in the US, one that's fueled by the green shoots of youth. It's funny, Donovan's exit comes at the same time as Miguel Ibarra gets his first cap. He's 24 years old. He plays in the NASL for the Minnesota United. They call him Batman. The Loons is their nickname. He's the first player in the NASL's reconstituted history to play for the US. He's actually one that got away from the MLS. Total rocket. I think he was once on the Timbers books, and it's a sign that Jurgen is going to look everywhere to build that kind of next era of US soccer. That plus Mix Discarud and Joe Zhao plus Chris Wando. Redemption. It's must-see television.
I have to say, having seen the United States men's national team play so often in the 1990s and through the 2000s, you cannot appreciate how many times Landon Donovan was the only player in a US uniform capable of playing the same game that the very best teams on the European or South American opposition were capable of playing. He was head and shoulders. And Dempsey came in and obviously was another great player in that team. But for so often, Landon Donovan was the player in the US men's national team.
He's such an oxymoron. He was a great American player in the outfield in an era of great American goalkeepers. He was a flair player on the US team that was built on collective kind of gritting out games.
Yeah.
And he's a gentleman that has always thought about his own kind of happiness as opposed to his own kind of career, and he's gone very much against the grain. I did ask him.
And went, by the way, and also we should say, went to Everton, went to your beloved Everton, and played his boots off at Everton.
And they loved him, absolutely, and loved him. And as I said, I think US fans will soon love him, with almost like Jimmy Carter, with time and with some healing in the same way as Everton fans feel about him now. Mm-hmm. My last question to him yesterday, I said, can you sum up your career in one word? I felt like a magician because I'd written my one word down.
Did he say explosion? No.
That was not my one word.
Okay.
I'd written one word down.
Which was?
Idiosyncratic.
Wow. And he didn't say that?
That's what he came up with.
No. Really? Yeah. It's like a magic trick. Yeah, you read your mind.
I had 2 words, actually.
That's so good.
Singular was the other.
Well, good. Another good word. Rog, America's other huge team, the Men in Blazers national team. Can we get a quick update on that?
We can. GFOP Zachary Ross of Albertville, Alabama.
Yeah.
One of thousands of GFOPs who wrote to info@gibraltarfa.com. And he was the one that got an email back from them. They emailed him back and said, "How old are your players?" was the email they wrote back. Thank you to Zach Ross. Thanks to him, we're now in conversation with the secretary of the Gibraltar FA.
Wow.
They have lots of very penetrating questions, as I said, like, how old are you?
Yeah.
They're trying to work out which of their many teams they want to pitch against.
We'll take the under-12s.
We're 2 nations divided by a common language, so keep emailing them. They love to email. They love pen friends in America. info@gibraltarfa.com. It's coming.
Okay, Monday, Rog, on the Men in Blazers show, we had a terrific guest, one of our favourites ever. It was none other than Dominic West, also known as The Wire's Jimmy McNulty.
Lay off the Greeks, they invented civilization.
And the star of Showtime's new series, The Affair. Once the show wrapped, we ate a pie with him and we kept chatting.
We welcome Dominic West
McDreamy.
to the Panic Room. McDreamy. It's not McDreamy.
He is,
it's English. He's the English McDreamy.
I have to say, he's the best our country, I think, can offer.
Pretty much.
America.
Oh,
pretty much.
Thanks, chaps.
I mean it, and we believe it. Let's talk about football first. I read a fascinating quote from you where you said, you were asked by The Guardian, do you have a hole in your cultural life? And you answered, football. I'd love to be really good at it and play it all the time. I used to get excited about England games, but I can't bear them now. I feel drained and slightly violated.
Yeah, well, that remains the same. Although I've now got 2 boys, 5 and 6, who are looking pretty good, and they are the ones being maybe scouted by QPR, and that's at 6. Yeah,
so he could make the starting lineup.
Yeah, I was encouraged. I thought, well, if that they're getting that young, maybe we'll do better in the World Cup next time.
What kind of a player is your son? Is he sort of a hard tackling midfielder? Is he sort of a flair wing player?
He's 6.
Yeah, you don't know yet. Well, he's getting scouted. He must have some.
I'm delighted when he hits the ball.
He's already Peter Crouch size.
I love it. It's so good.
You were born in the north, Sheffield.
Yeah.
Educated in the south. Dave always talks about the north. He just says the sky is
much closer to the ground in the north.
How would you explain to Americans the basic fundamental difference between north, where I'm from, south, where I'm from, out of which they emerged?
It's probably. What, is New York bigger than England? I think it is. So it'd be difficult for Americans to appreciate just the gulf between our two great halves of the country.
The
but
two
the
great
north
world powers.
is where all the music, all the character, all the culture comes from, and the south is where all the bankers live.
Where all the money is made to pay for all of that culture and to make you all rich and to go and do all of those things. So accents. The other fascinating thing, I've just got back from England. I was in Norfolk, about 120 miles northeast of London, and the accent is completely different in Norfolk and unique to that part of the world, unlike anywhere. Unlike it all speak like that, a little bit like that, Rog. And in
there is a in the study of populations, demographics.
Yeah.
There are two classifications. One is normal for England, and the other one is NFN, normal for Norfolk.
wow.
It's the most inbred area, isn't it? But I mean, great part of the world.
Good golf courses.
It's what attracted David to it.
I like that. And the golf courses, without a doubt. But the accents change so much. So you grew up in Sheffield, a very particular kind of Yorkshire accent around Sheffield.
That's right.
And then, but you go 20 minutes north or 30 minutes north up towards Newcastle.
Yeah.
And the accent completely changes.
It'd take a bit longer than what you want a jet.
Yeah, well, on a helicopter, I'm from the south. That's the way I travel.
You're probably in your private jet.
David would only fly over it to strafe it.
but the accents change very quickly.
That's
you don't
right.
have to drive very far.
Sheffield got a nice, soft, lilting, lovely, warm accent, and then you get up north. And I can't really do Geordie. The Newcastle accent's obviously called Geordie, and it's got a bit of Scottish mixed in. So it sounds a bit more like it's a bit bloody cold up there, like that, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That moved me. I got the thing about you, obviously The Wire, McNulty, Stringer Bell, both of you adapt to and do your American accents. You said it was very hard. I just did my best De Niro impression. Got to be honest, it's a bit of a terrible De Niro impression. But
that was for the audition.
Really?
Do it, go on.
Is that how you do it?
Just give
No, I don't. Well, I was doing any old. But the reason I got the part is because I was trying to do this accent. I put myself on tape and sent them the tape, and they thought it was so funny, and so my De Niro impression was so bad. They thought, well, let's get him over.
Was it Roger Rabbit De Niro?
Let's get him over. And
isn't that a scene in The Trip? I believe that is a scene in The Trip. Is somebody doing a De Niro impression? Or maybe Pacino.
And you also said something lovely. You said that you were doing great accents in the show, but when there was an English director, you just let your accent completely threw you completely off. But what is the trick? I've lived here for 20 years. I can't, still to this day, the only words I can say in American are hot dog, $1 million, and guacamole, or the whole enchilada is another. I can do hooray for Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood!
And soccer.
What is the trick?
The trick is trying to get the R right. If you can say Northern California, then you're fine. I still can't say Northern California, and I'm that's my job. Northern California and two doors, which is how the people say it in Baltimore. 2 doors, and the Orals, of course, who are the baseball team.
Yeah,
the Orals.
Yeah, well, I remember growing up, and my mum used to go to Sainsbury's, and she would bring back Maryland cookies. And Maryland cookies were chocolate chip cookies.
Right.
But when you come here, you can't say Maryland, it's Maryland.
Merlin.
And not Florida.
Merlin.
Yeah, not Florida, it's Florida.
Right.
You've got to move it all into each other.
It's not easy.
Brad Friedel's forgotten all of this.
He's my language teacher.
Yeah.
I am. It's like My Fair Lady for me and him. Another thing I love about you, every interview I read of you, you talk about things that are near and dear to my heart. You talk about watching Dallas. You talk about watching Starsky and Hutch. I mean, I watched a stream of these shows, Heart to Heart, Fantasy Island, growing up in Liverpool. Can you describe what was it like to see all of the in England of the 1980s, which I'm guessing was when you?
Yeah.
What did it feel like to watch this stuff?
Well, it was so exotic, wasn't it? I think everything we watched was American. So we had the Waltons, on the Thursday night before Top of the
John
Pops.
Boy.
Then we had, and then it was Dallas, and part of the problem I had when I was on The Wire was when I was running around as an American cop with a gun. I just had imposter syndrome because I thought, I'd been running around as an American cop since the age of about 4, thinking I was, pretending to do the same thing, and here I was still pretending to do that. So.
That's my mistake. I've been running around as Joan Collins.
Yeah, I love the Rockford Files. Was always
yes,
the show I loved when I was a kid.
Dad's
I
favorite.
loved
Charlie's
that.
Angels. Yeah,
it was all good.
Great.
When did you first come to America?
I came. I think it was about in my early 20s, about 21. I came to New York. It was the first time I'd been, and couldn't believe it. And then my daughter, when she came over when she was 1, and I could never explain to her how privileged she was to go to this great country at such a young age.
Paddy Carmody, one of our listeners, wants to know, when you were filming The Wire, were you aware at the time that you were creating something that would go down as one of the greatest television series of all time?
No. No. I mean, we knew the writing was great, and we knew it was not like anything we'd seen before. But it was no one was really watching it. It was watched by the people who depicted it. It was watched by police, and it was watched by lawyers, and it was watched by gangsters and stuff. But nobody else was really watching it for a while. And then a few critics championed it, and then it got very big. And it's still, still people come up to me and say they're coming to it for the first time. And I've never known a show like that.
More than Spice World.
Yeah, actually, you're the first person that's mentioned Spice World in years.
I actually have a theory. I believe you can tell a lot by a man, by which Spice Girl he admires as a thespian more.
True.
I'm guessing you're, just from our brief interaction, I'm guessing you're a ginger Spice Girl.
I am. When I met them, I don't know who I was before, but
Baby Spice.
When I did the show, they or the film,
Baby
they all
Spice.
ignored me except for Ginger, so I like Ginger.
Oh, that's nice. She is a lovely woman, actually.
Yeah.
She's a very nice woman. Yeah, loves the show. Great friend of the pod.
Just 2 kids.
So, Sheffield is an interesting city, as far as I'm concerned, because football-wise, it has 2 great football teams. Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday, both a little down on their luck these days, Rog. But 2 teams capable, a city big enough, capable of supporting a Premier League team. What is the difference between people who support Sheffield United and people who support Sheffield Wednesday? Is that a geographic thing, or is it just handed down from family
I think Wednesday's
to family?
probably a bit more middle class.
Yeah.
I don't know, but most of my friends supported Wednesday.
Yeah.
And then Hillsborough's a better ground.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that was the difference.
Got it.
I'm not sure if it still is. I was on the train with a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans the other day, and I'm not sure that rule still exists. They were quite a frightening bunch.
Yeah,
but I
or
suppose,
the middle class have become more violent. It could also be, and more alcoholic.
It's what Wellington said about the English infantry. He said, I don't know what the hell they do to Napoleon, but they scare the hell out of me. Serious question. Prince Harry, you just did a charity trek to the South Pole, was it?
Yeah.
With Prince Harry.
Yeah.
You said it was for a great charity, Walk with the Wounded. You said he kept up morale, Prince Harry, royalty, by telling, quote, filthy jokes and building elaborate castle-style latrines.
Yeah.
You can tell us, what filthy jokes did Prince Harry tell you?
I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't.
Another ginger, though.
But he's
See,
a
obviously
soldier.
You like a ginger.
Yeah, I suppose I do. But his latrines were extra. Having when it's minus 40 and you need to go, I tell you, it cheers you up when you're in a royal flush.
Yeah. What's he, 4th in line to the throne? Right now, it's good to know that we've got a potential future king with this skill set.
Latrine digging abilities.
So the affair starts next Sunday on Showtime.
Yes.
Why did you take this role? What was it about it that was interesting to you?
I don't really know. I was pitched that it was a show about a middle-aged man who has an affair with a younger woman on the beach in Montauk. But other than that, I don't know what was interesting. I don't know what appealed. I don't know what initially appealed. But so that was, it was great to, and also it was with Ruth Wilson, who's a great actress and another Brit, of course, and so those are the reasons really.
And do you get to film out there on the beautiful East End of Long Island?
Well, not as much as I'd hoped. I mean, I was told the whole thing was set.
Yeah.
The whole thing is set there, but
Yeah.
we shot there for about a month, and then we did the rest of the time was sort of around Long Island. And
Yeah.
The scenes with you and your father-in-law, not to be missed.
Dominic West, thank you so much. Really good luck.
Thanks very
with
much.
the affair.
First
Hope
guest
that
that
works.
has ever eaten his whole pie.
Ate
Yeah.
his whole pie.
Too good to miss. Too
It's
good to miss it.
Myers of Keswick, really good work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
What a lovely, lovely man, Rog.
He redefines lovely, David.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to hear.
Yeah, we should say the entire After the Pies extra, an extended interview. We're putting it on NBCSports.com/MIB, which is where every ounce of our suboptimal content lives on NBC, including Roger's writing. That's not suboptimal at all.
Oh, it's awful. We did ask our listeners who the different characters in The Wire would be in the Premier League. We've got thousands of responses.
Great answers.
My 2 favourite, at Kyle Godot, Joe Hart seems like Presbo.
Yeah.
Or Presbo seems like Joe Hart. I don't know which way around it is. And at RJW Pearson,
Yeah.
he said, this is just brilliant. Wayne Rooney has got to be Ziggy Sabukta, right?
So good. Okay, Rog, before we get to the Ravens, we had a massive response to our annual Look into the Future and Design the Cover for EA Sports FIFA 16 game competition. Hard to pick 10 winners. They're going to be posted on our Tumblr. Miguel Herrera and Stephen Naismith were the huge themes this year. Wet Herrera and Scottish Messi. All of the winners will receive a copy of EA Sports 15 and and MIB patch.
Got to say, it's only playing FIFA 15 that's keeping me going this season.
It is.
I've got Zlatan playing for Everton.
He is. How is he good? Does he look good in the Chang shirt?
Feels amazing. Quick update on GDOP, David.
Yeah.
Any progress?
Well, yeah, we've booked the flight. I'm going down to pick him up.
The dog, great dog of the pod.
Great dog of the pod, little black lab. I'm picking him up. He was born last week on Monday. I'm going to pick him up on Saturday, November the 15th. Lots and lots of names.
We'll live tweet it.
Coming in. I will be live tweeting.
At PMC1445.
Yeah.
It has to be, he says, Philip Barkin.
Philip Barkin. That's a very, very good name, Philip Barkin. Philip Barkin. I must say, right now, the leading for me as the contender is named after another poet, is Wilfred, after Wilfred Owen, Wilfred Boney. That's leading right now. Wilf. I think it's a good name for a dog.
I think we can do better. Keep them
Okay,
coming. Have you
keep
worked
them
out what the
coming in.
prize is yet?
Maybe the dog. We'll see. It's going to be a fantastic prize. I'll put something amazing together for the winner.
The dog's
That's
for
gonna be
life,
there.
David, not just for podcasting.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, Rog, on to the Ravens. The first Raven from Robbie Vogel from Boston, Massachusetts. A great American name. Men, I enjoyed your coverage of the Ryder Cup. I attended the event, oh, you lucky man, along with 3 friends, and I came away with one major question, namely, what the hell is up with the Europe chants that rolled across Glen Eagles all weekend? I know you both said you're unfamiliar with the feeling of cheering on your entire continent, so perhaps I'll chalk it up to that. But for the life of me, I can't figure out why the European supporters couldn't come up with a better cheer than the drawn-out groan of Europe, which was their response to every positive shot from their team. It sounded like a walrus having a bad orgasm.
Do walruses have good orgasms?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, probably.
Can someone email us about that? I'd love
We
to
need
know.
a walrus expert, a walrus ecstasy expert. Obviously, the USA chant is easy, effective, and powerful, but Europe really need to get their act together.
I can't stop thinking about Craig Stadler having an orgasm.
A supporters summit where you could suggest a new chant, and tangentially, where do all the best chants and songs from English football, the Luis Suarez song, the Fernando Torres song, spring to mind, come from? They're clever and well thought out, but I guess that's what happens when you have folks filling the terraces every week rather than every 2 years. I do think organisation has a lot to do with it. There are organised fan chant groups. There are processes in place at every club where new chants get birthed and spread around the terraces. The European fans who come to go and watch the golf
hate each other.
Well, every 4 years, they don't have any coordination.
Yeah, I mean, I'd separate the two issues. I mean, number one, Europe is a tough word for rhymers. I looked at Rhyme Zone, my rhyming dictionary.
Yeah.
Do you know the only words that rhyme with Europe, according to Rhyme Zone, are words that almost rhyme with it? 4 syllables, golden syrup, that doesn't rhyme with it, maple syrup.
Yeah.
And then 3 syllables, corn syrup. And my favourite, most random, it doesn't rhyme at all, street Arab. Not many good chants there.
Yeah.
So that puts the Ryder Cup one to bed.
Yeah.
And then for football, we get asked that a lot about how do these chants happen. There's familiar tropes, I'd say, for football fan songs that they fit a lot into. Walking in a Winter Wonderland, Volare, and Depeche Mode just can't get enough, which is my favourite. So the standard chants, and then new ones are spread in pubs before the game. So like the Everton standard to Carly Simon's You're So Vain, Leighton Baines, I bet you think this song is about you. They stick in pubs beforehand and then they're unleashed and they become part of the kind of folklore. English comic Paul Kay, do you remember him?
Yeah.
He had a character I used to love about a football chant composer who'd talk seriously about the songs he wrote. And he'd say, they had a line something like, the general sentiment that I try to convey is poverty, bad housing, and focus on a poor diet.
It's so good. I made up a football chant this weekend, Rog, to the tune of the Clash's Rock the Casbah.
Yeah.
It's Arsene, don't like it. Cesc to Costa, Cesc to Costa. I was quite pleased with that.
It's going to catch on,
We'll
David.
see if it does.
Stand up on your own at the bridge and just see if it takes hold.
Come to the shed and we'll welcome you. Wear your blue, see us through. Okay, Rog, the winner of the coveted Guinness Men in Blazers poet, philosopher, Saka, scribe, raven, the week is Luke Dodd, Rog. Dearest Rog and Davo, I've noticed Davo seems to have an inordinate number of things that nothing makes him happier than. I have been pondering that degree of happiness, and I've identified 2 possible routes to this statement. A. Davo is very in-the-moment kind of man. He often experiences his peak happiness. However, that experience is fleeting and in a few minutes becomes no more remarkable than eating his favourite flavour of ice cream. Enjoyable, but not earth-shattering. B. Davo has a very low peak happiness, as all emotion is relative. He wouldn't necessarily notice, but many experiences could drive him to his emotional peak. Perhaps the root of the positive nickname. In contrast to Rog, who seems to be capable of great magnitudes of joy and despair and slower to reach both. I don't know about that. Davo appears to quickly become as happy or as sad as I have ever heard or occasionally seen him. Which is better, to be as happy as you have ever been a few times a week, or be capable of enormous emotion but only hit your peak a few times in a lifetime? Consider that all emotion is relative and happiness can be all too fleeting.
True. So
Yours
true.
in pod, Luke Dodd. It's funny because one of the guys I was playing golf with, Rog, my mate Jim Darby, and what he does, what he specialises in is he teaches nowism, living in the moment, being right there in the moment and not trying to sort of like put off great things.
It's called repression.
Is it?
Living in the now.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the 2 options for you, he seems to have
I'm
spelled
also
out. Are you a goldfish or
Yeah.
are you easily aroused?
Yeah, it's very much like a Rog question. It's like I'm asked to choose between 2 points, neither of which are great answers. I am generally a happy person, Rog.
Yeah.
And I'm also quite shallow. I think that's the C answer, which isn't really explored there. And a lot of quite shallow things make me generally pretty happy.
Well, I'd say the question about what's it better to be
Yeah.
like Davo or to be like me.
Yeah.
I've got a rule of thumb on these issues,
Yeah.
which is ARBD, always rather be Davo. That's my advice to anyone listening. I mean, I'm a Bears fan, I'm an Everton fan,
Yeah.
and I'm Jewish.
Yeah.
The Cossacks are always coming. And I basically try and manage that, not by living in the now, repression, but I fancy myself as a stoic, like Seneca or Musonius Rufus. I thought, like Seneca, Musonius Rufus, Roger Bennett. But then I read this essay by a man called Alexander Grant, who he wrote about the ancient Stoics. He said, cynicism is a withdrawal from the world into blank isolation. Stoicism is the withdrawal into an inner life. And I realised I'm probably more the former than the latter, David. So I like to talk about Stoicism, but I'm basically your run-of-the-mill pessimist.
Yeah. My D option, which is similar to the C option, is that lots of shallow little things make me happy until the next shallow temporary thing makes me temporarily happy.
Well, we can talk about
That's
that.
why I lurch through life.
We'll talk about that in the Emporium feature of the show.
Yeah, it's so true. Before we get to that, Rog, your weekend looks like this. United States men's national team
It's an international break, Dave.
versus Ecuador Friday at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Ireland versus Gibraltar.
Mighty Jib, come on.
In
Do you
Euro
like it in the
qualifying.
face?
That's on ESPN3 or ESPN Caribbean. That seriously is not a joke.
Is it Gibraltar or is it info@gibraltarfa.com?
We'll see Estonia versus England in Euro qualifying. Also Sunday at noon on ESPN Deportes and ESPN3. In NMLS, Seattle Sounders versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. That's Friday at 10 p.m. on NBCSN.
They were international break. I missed the Premier League as badly as Fernando Torres misses open goals when he played for Chelsea.
Very good, Rog.
That badly.
It's good. You've still got a way to bring Torres back into the pod. Many ways to connect to us. One is through our Amazon Emporium, which helps keep the show going. Anytime you go to Amazon for items big or small, just click off the Emporium page. Men in Blazers gets a tiny percentage that allows us to cover the costs of creating the show. What are you putting into the Emporium this week, Roger?
Well, as you know, it was one of my favourite days of the year this week, Yom Kippur.
You love it, don't you?
Yeah. And every day on Yom Kippur,
Yeah.
I read the same book over and over and over.
Uh-huh.
It's The Drowned and the Saved by Primo Levi.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an essay that I always adore and I recommend to anyone to read at least once in your life. It's an essay called The Grey Zone, which is about how we separate things into good and evil. Yes, I do that too, Davo, Chelsea and Arsenal.
Yeah.
But really most things exist somewhere in between in the grey zone. It kind of reconnects me to a basic philosophy of human nature to which I adhere. So that book, it's a slim volume, The Drowned and the Saved, and I recommend it to absolutely everybody.
By the way, are you saying that Arsenal are good to Chelsea's evil?
Well, you know, I was trying to. You mock me for just reducing things into completely simplistic.
Yeah, that's the nicest thing you've ever said about Arsenal.
He even
Rog.
says it's a book about this. Really, this essay is the one that stands out. He even says in the beginning, and it makes me laugh, it's a book about his experiences in the Holocaust. But in the beginning of the Grey Zone, he says, we reduce great things like wars and sporting conflict to good and bad. And it did. I noted it, I underlined it and thought, David.
Yeah. Well, Rog, you are so deep, so you put a very deep piece of writing. I'm putting all-weather golf gloves, Rog. We're going into the winter golf season in the Northern Hemisphere. And you know what? It's the weather, it gets cold, it gets rainy. Very difficult to play with just one golf glove. I think you need the 2 golf gloves. I did this this weekend at Royal Cromer in Norfolk. It was pissing down with rain, Rog. And I went to the Nike Men's All-Weather 2 regular black golf gloves. I'm sticking them in. Fantastic. It seems that the wetter and colder they get, the better they give your grip on the golf club. The grip is all important, Rog. I couldn't recommend these gloves more. That and a 5 hybrid, you're going to play great golf this winter.
The only people I know who wear 2 golf gloves.
Yeah.
Safe crackers.
Yeah. Well, there is that guy, Tommy somebody, who is a great... he wears... They call him Tommy 2 gloves, I think. He wears 2 golf gloves when he plays. I love it. It's a very good look. Okay, Rog, the second way to connect to us is through our newsletter, The Raven. It's fueled by Guinness. Lucky newsletter. Collates the best ravens and our own writing on a weekly basis. Sign up via meninblazers.com. We'll both post what we're reading, listening to, or watching. Also, new listeners, please download on iTunes and Amazon our Best Of album, which is somehow soaring up the Billboard comedy charts. Men in Blazers Unbuttoned. Now, that's what I call suboptimal. And also, click on our wonderful, independently GFOP-maintained wiki, meninblazers.wikispaces.com/a wonder of the modern world. You can always reach us, meninblazers.com. Reach us on Twitter, at Embassy Davies, at Rog Bennett, at Men in Blazers. On Instagram, at Men in Blazers. Facebook, we got that page. We've got a subreddit maintained by GFOP Akshay at reddit.com/r/Men in Blazers. Email us at meninblazers@gmail.com.
We love your emails.
Send your
Try and answer
ravens
all of them.
to the crap part of Soho. Venderpunk, Rog.
War pig.
Who wants to sex Matumbo?
Explosion.
Courage.
To Tweed.
It is the easiest way to get to A to B.
Morrissey, get well soon, mate.
Abrigado, rock on, mate.
Kung Fu fight in America.
Love you, Rog.
Love you, Davo.